to make that connection. There we go. And let me hit record. All right. Welcome back to Boss Uncaged podcast. So today we have a special episode with an individual that is beyond bold, right? I mean, that's his key phrase, that's his key terminology. But historically, those that were around in the early, let's say the 90s, you probably heard his company corporation a million times. So if you're familiar with 1-800 Dentist, Fred is the founder of that corporation. So, I like to name whoever I'm interviewing with a particular nickname. So, the nickname today is going to be can anyone guess maybe? The Super Bold Boss. Fred, the floor is yours. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about you and what we're talking about today?
SA, thanks for having me on. So my main career was creating with my partner and 1-800 Dentist, which became the largest dentist referral service in the country. Ran it for about 25 years, sold it as Google kind of disintermediated the model, as well as television streaming, because we did millions and hundreds of millions of dollars of television advertising, and eventually stopped working. But we had a good run with the model. And so my next chapter in my life was, how can I have the greatest impact on people based on something that I learned that I think that I'm passionate about. And that is the superpower of boldness. The difference it can make in your life, the difference it made in my life. And it was something I had to teach myself. I was not a bold person. I was an incredibly shy person and missed tons of opportunities along the way and had tons of regrets. And I just said, I got to find a way to stop this. And so gradually I changed it. And then I figured out I got to find a simpler way to teach people this so it doesn't take them 3 decades or 4 decades to figure it out. And so that's what my latest book is about, Super Bold, from underconfident to charismatic in 90 days. A bold promise, but if you do the things in the book, you will find yourself on a highly accelerated path to chasing your dreams and bringing your full self to the world and not missing great opportunities.
I think that's a hell of an opening, and it kind of just goes to like who you are. And obviously, the book is out there, and I listened to probably like a couple of the chapters, and right away, it's one of those books that in the first chapter you're delivering so much value. I think one of the key takeaways that you said was boldness can be learned, right? It's not something that you're not born bold; it's something that you become, right? So I want you to kind of like talk about that. How has that helped you to get to where you are currently?
Well, to run a business, you have to be bold enough to go out and get your customers. I mean, we beat the streets for 6 months to find the first 18 dentists to participate because nobody was doing that kind of thing. We had to invent every aspect of the business. It takes boldness just to start a business, to just say, I think I can do this. It takes a little naivete too. It takes a little bit of like, oh, I think I can pull this off. Because if you knew how hard it was going to be, you probably wouldn't do it. But once you get committed to it, then you kind of have to make it work. And it helped me with with relationships. I was not meeting the partners that I wanted to be with, and eventually I developed the boldness by emulating other people, and I started to meet great women who just were a match for me, and that was a big difference right there. And I didn't miss out on fun. I said, I started saying, why not, instead of why would I do that. I loved being sarcastic and negative in my early life. I could put down anything, which accomplished nothing. But eventually I said, yeah, maybe I'll try that. Maybe I'll be interested. Maybe I'll try sushi. Maybe I'll try bungee jumping. Maybe I'll, go to Berlin for a week by myself to see what the heck's going on, and just do stuff like that. And, and even things like eating dinner alone. some people, like, they're terrified of that idea. Oh, people are thinking about me. Oh, look at that poor guy sitting there eating alone. What a bunch of bullshit, right? But this is the tapes we play in our head about this stuff. And so conquering all that just allowed my life to just keep opening up, and all sorts of unexpected things came my way because of it. And I just learned to trust the process of just being bold and saying, well, something interesting will happen.
I mean, I think it's definitely interesting. I mean, another one of the quotes from your book was, "You're not shy, you feel shy." And I think by default, most people think that, like again, it goes back into their DNA. They were born that way. They're not an A-type personality. But you're saying it's more so it's a psychological feeling. It's an emotion. So I want you to kind of talk about that and unpack that for us a little bit.
Yeah, what we have, it's so important to understand, to not label yourself, I'm an introvert, I'm shy. You don't have to. Those are behavioral things. They are not genetic things. Okay, you may feel a little bit more outgoing, a little less outgoing, but most of it is socialization. And you either didn't get reinforced for your boldness, or you did. Or somebody said, don't be a show off, don't draw attention to yourself, and speak when you're spoken to, even stuff like that. And you got repressed. You were told that you weren't worthy to present your full self. And I always talk about how basically you take any 4-year-old, they can sing and dance. By the time they're 12, they can't sing and dance. What happened? Mindset. That's all that happened. But what I try to do is get people to realize that they have what I call situational boldness, because they're not shy with their family. They're not shy probably with their coworkers, maybe a little bit. They're behaving in a shy way and underconfident in certain situations and confident in others. And everybody's different. But the big problem is most of us are underconfident when it matters the most. When we've got to do something important, we got to ask for a raise. We got to start a business. We got to ask for money for that business. We got to ask a customer for the order. We got to give a eulogy, or just a presentation to our department. Oh, I don't like to speak in front of people. Well, guess what? You're not good at speaking in front of people. That will impair your career for the rest of your life. You got to be good on your feet. And if you are good on your feet and get better and better on your feet, that's a rocket to the moon, because it's an incredibly powerful life skill. And you can build up that skill. You can build boldness like a muscle. By doing it gradually, So
I think one of the things that you said was a good segue for this next question. You was talking about having like the mindset of a 4-year-old. So I think on one of your talks, you were talking about you were walking into the elevator and there was this little girl and she pushed the button, and as little kids like to, they like to push the button as well. So she was like, okay, what floor you going to? She pushes the button and you're going to the floor above her, and then she was like, oh wow, you're right on the floor above us. We should come visit. So I want you to kind of finish the second half of the story, because I mean the way you delivered it, it's not only funny, but it's bold in itself. And then you started talking about the value proposition of what you're doing versus what you're asking for.
Yes. And so that it was so innocent. This was a girl in the elevator in my building. And when I said, you can push my floor. What one? 4. Okay. Oh, you're only 1 floor above us. We can come up and visit. And I just thought, when did we lose that? When did that change? And it's because the power of it, if I can call it a power, is that she had no agenda. She wasn't trying to get anything from me. She wasn't trying to sell me, a new car or get me as a client or get me as a subscriber or find out if I wanted to sell my condo. She was just saying, oh, we could come up and play. And I said, oh, you could meet my cat. Oh, what's your cat's name? Cookie. Oh, that's funny. And it was like that. And the big message for me, along with that innocence and she was so beguiling just by being that way, was that that the lack of agenda. And when you're meeting somebody new, if your only agenda is connection, it's a huge difference. And that's not really an agenda. It's trying to be a human being. And so I talk to people everywhere. I love talking to people in elevators because there's like this weird unwritten rule in America that you're not supposed to talk in the elevator. So to me, it's this golden opportunity to just say anything. But I love complimenting people. Just look at them and say, what's something I could compliment about them? I don't know where you got that suit, but man, it looks great on you. You know, that hand, you know, women accessorize. They've spent a lot of money accessorizing. So say those shoes are working for you, you know, or that handbag looks great, or those earrings are so unique. They're so interesting. People love that. And you do, I call it a drive-by compliment. You have no expectation of anything else except making them feel good about themselves.
So I mean, let's just dive down that rabbit hole a little bit deeper, because in another one of your talks, you made a statement saying that value is perception, and you was talking about the gold iWatch, right? So in the elevator, you're talking about delivering value by saying, "Hey, that's great. That's something wonderful on that person." You're giving them a compliment, and by doing that, then you're essentially earning their trust and you're building that relationship. So on the other side, with the value being perception, how does that work or differ? Different from giving someone a compliment?
We all have our biases, right? We all have the filters that we see the world through, and these are all learned things, and we're mostly unaware of them. So what you're dealing with are people's judgments. And we all do it. I walk around and I do it. I judge people by their height, by what they're wearing, their hairstyle, and I'm wrong about 98% of the time. And so I force myself to get to know them. And so the key thing to remember is people are doing that about you too. They have a judgment about you based on virtually no information. And it's like a Polaroid of you, right? It's like, oh, this snapshot moment. I use the example of like people who say, I met this movie star and he was a real jerk. And I said, you don't know if you met him for 10 seconds and you decided he was a jerk because he didn't want to sign your a napkin with an autograph. He could have had a paparazzo trying to take a picture of his kids 10 minutes earlier, right? Yeah. You don't, and so when you understand that people are judging you inaccurately and you're judging them inaccurately as well, stop worrying about what everybody thinks, right? Realize that their perceptions can easily be influenced by the simplest of behaviors, like me offering a compliment. What I do, which, because I know I have these judgments, is if I see somebody that I have a judgment about, is like, what the heck is that woman wearing that purple spotted dress for? It looks ridiculous. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say, that dress looks amazing on you. And you know what happens? My judgment goes away. And because she wore it on purpose. She's not wearing it to look ridiculous. So, I got to erase my judgment and actually make her feel good about herself. And so I'm shifting her perception of herself a little bit. I'm uplifting her. I am the voice of upliftment to her. And she's seeing me as, wow, that person is generous with his compliments and is expecting nothing of me. Because that's the big barrier. That's the agenda thing. Everybody has this, we build this barrier because so many people are coming at us for something. Yeah. That we have to have this wall up. Imagine being an attractive woman. It's like you have to have barriers up to not indicate I'm completely approachable at all times. I can't even imagine what that's like. But I would like to find out. actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would like to have attractive women just coming up to me and saying, I'd really like to meet you. But so when you are there to just gently shift their perception to something more positive about themselves and about you, that strengthens you, because you say, regardless of how all the defenses that I have and people have, I can rise above it. I can actually penetrate it.
I think the last statement that you made, it kind of reminds me of your podcast episode with Jay Smith, the Boldly Disturbed Yourself episode, and he was talking about, and I'm not saying that you were lying to her, but he was saying, like, he had to lie at certain times to essentially help build the confidence of the people that he was coaching, to get them to believe what he was saying to them. So do you think that like that's a decent approach, even though that it may be a lie, but it's a lie for a positive reason?
Yeah, and it's like calling it a lie is strong. It's like shifting the definition of it necessarily. The characterization of it is more what you're doing. If I see a friend that I know has been overweight for a long time, and I know they've just started something to work on it, and they maybe shed 10 pounds of the 100 they need to lose, I'm going to say, man, you're looking thinner. Are you, how much weight are you peeling off here? Whereas, part of my brain, I'm lying. They look the same, right? They don't look that different, but I know they're working at it. So I want to encourage that success. Because they don't know, they weigh themselves and they go, I think I'm losing weight. Does it make any difference? Because I want them on the path. I want to encourage them to succeed in that path. There's nothing in it for me for that guy to lose weight.
Yeah,
but there's a lot in it for him.
Yeah, yeah. So that leads me to, on your website, right? You have a boldness exercise, and it's a 3-step exercise, and it kind of seems like you're living this, you're breathing this, but you're also helping people with that path. And I think the first step of it is to just randomly smile at 5 strangers, like people that you don't completely know. Step 2 is then you want to talk to one of these strangers, and then step 3 is you want to ask a question. So I want to know, how did you come up with that formula, and how has that formula benefited the people that you're helping coach?
So there's 5 steps to building your boldness muscle. And the first step is preparation, is preparing what you're going to say or do. But the 4th step is dosage, controlling the intensity of the experience. Okay. So it's the PRIDE method. So it's preparation, relaxing, insights, dosage, and everyday action. Okay. So there's everyday action is part of it, is always part of it, but building your muscle, anything you want to get good at, work at every day, even for 5 or 10 minutes, because it aggregates, right? And if you think you're going to get to it when you feel like, if you worked out when you felt like working out, you'd probably work out, let's say, probably 2 times a year, roughly, right? Maybe less. But if you say, I'm going to do something, I'm going to move every day, the body gets stronger. So everybody's at a different level building their boldness muscle. So start really simply. And when you start by smiling at 5 strangers every day, there's 2 parts of it. 1, a surprising number of people will smile back. And 2, a certain number of people won't. And you learn to not take it on. It's got nothing to do with you. That you're training yourself to not experience rejection, to not define something as rejection. It's just what happened. You have no idea. This could be the worst day of their life. You don't know. So, they could have bad teeth. They don't smile at anybody. Whatever it is, you dismiss it. So you're building up this tolerance for a non-response, or what you might have characterized as a negative response. But you don't have to stop smiling at people because they didn't smile back. I say hi to people all the time who don't say hi back. It's like, even in my own building, They just don't say hi. They're so closed in that saying hi out loud to a stranger is more than they got. And I understand it. I don't judge them about it. I say, like, I don't ever want to be trapped like that. I want to give them a book. Like, it's like, here, so you need people. You need to be social. We're social animals. Don't kid yourself. Right. And unfortunately, we've created a world where you can isolate the heck out of yourself. You can stay in your house and watch TV and have food delivered and play video games and go on social media and pretend you're having social interactions. But in reality, you are not being social. You're not feeding this basic human need of human interaction.
Wow. Wow. It's very powerful. So obviously I did my due diligence, right? And so I was looking at like your education, and this kind of like wants me to lead into this, because I mean, when I look at your education from a marketing standpoint, I know that you are a copywriter, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you write copy through and through. So I want to talk about copy to where it has gotten you. Because I mean, obviously with the 1-800-Dentist as a brand, obviously I think you were behind the copy for majority of the things that went out to the market, hence why it was pretty successful. So let's talk about that journey. Like, how did you get into copy? Like, why did you get into copy, and how did that help you become as fruitful as you are today?
Yeah. So I had a sense that I always wanted to be a writer. I didn't have a way to do it, but by the time I was finishing college, that was I was focusing on creative writing. And I sucked at it, right? It's like nothing I wrote was much of anything. I wrote a couple of decent short stories, but I tried to write a novel and it was horrible. And the teacher let me know. I mean, he had notes on every page. He was like slashing through pages and stuff. But it was great because I said, I have to get better. I am not a great writer. And then I got out and did some sales jobs, and I worked a bunch of businesses while I was in college and while I was on a break in between two colleges. And I learned a lot about how different businesses work just by working in them at a low level. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I got to Los Angeles, and a friend of mine was a storyboard artist, and he took me into the ad agency where he was working, and he was good friends with the general manager. And just walking into the place, I said, oh, these are my people. This is my tribe. I could do this for a living, because I had no idea what I could do for long term. And so I said, how do I get a job here? And this is, sometimes the person gives you one piece of advice that changes the trajectory of your whole life. And that was what the general manager did. He said, look, I'm not going to give you a job just because you're David's friend, because you don't know how to write advertising. I can already tell because you haven't done it. So there was a night school being taught by creative directors, working creative directors. And in 6 months, they taught me how to write advertising, because I had a sense of how to write. I just didn't know how to shape stuff that was persuasive. Advertising is communication with a purpose, to sell, to persuade. And I learned how to do it. And then I started working in the agency, and I just loved it. But I just didn't like the career arc, which is at 50, it falls off a cliff and you can't get a job. You go from making 300 grand a year to you're working at Starbucks. So I said, I'm not going to let this happen. So I want my own business. And then the opportunity came to start 1-800-Dentist. And a buddy of mine was a stockbroker, and he said, I got to stop losing people's money for a living. I can't stand it anymore. Let's try to do something positive. And so we just banded together and did this. And I wrote the radio spots, and then eventually the TV spots, and then eventually was in about half the TV spots. But everything I did was about what is the effective communication? How do I, and then eventually I wrote 2 marketing books for the dental industry, and I made them really readable, because a lot of I'm sure you have business books that you love the content of, like the message, but you earned every bit of it because the guy was such a crappy writer, right? Just like, not like you're like trying to stay awake as you go, like, this is good. like, so I want it to feel like I'm just talking to them. And so my first book came out 15 years ago. There are still people coming up talking to me. I just read your book. I make my whole team read your book. And I'm saying, boy, there's some stale stuff in that book, but 2/3 of it is like understanding marketing for your business. And so those things worked. Writing is the core of everything that I do. And then I wrote Super Bowl. My ability to write so people get something out of it is what's powerful. Because the thing is, if you have no feedback loop, you can think you're brilliant. But if your book has to have impact, and then you get the feedback that says it is having the effect. Now, the next step for me was I need to get on stage. I need to start delivering this message live. And of course, I sucked at that until you get better. You get coaching, you watch videos of yourself. Painful experience to watch your early videos of yourself on stage. You go like, what am I doing? What is going on up there? What is with all these facial tics and weird movements and incoherent sentences? And you get better. And to a point where you become, with all of the training that you can get, but just mostly doing it, you get, so you can't wait to get on stage. And because that the medium, you're prepared and can be spontaneous, and you're energized, not anxious. You've converted that energy. You've done a little Einsteinian shift with anxiety and turned it into energy, because you don't want to be so relaxed on stage that you're dull.
Yeah.
You want to be like juiced. You want to bring the full you out there. And that's boldness too, is to say, look, I'm going to, whatever wackiness or weirdness or passion I want, I feel, I want to bring it to the stage. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people they dial down who they are when they're in front of people, which is ineffective, right? It's like, it's numbing to people.
Yeah. Well, I definitely appreciate that. 'Cause I mean, to your point, like when I'm writing my books, or I always kind of put a sense of humor or wittiness, and I put like a sexual aspect to it. I'm on stage, I'll make sexual terms be relatable to like marketing and branding, so it's very cohesive for the audience to relate to it. So I want to talk about your stage presence, right? I mean, obviously you have like a stand-up background. You kind of did some improv, and so I think one of the smart comments that you made one time was completely hilarious to me. When you said it on stage, was like something about someone's cleaning their teeth, and they were drinking Rockstar rinse, and then you told them, well, they might as well rinse with Coke after they drank that. So again, it's kind of like why are you even doing what you're doing? So I want you to talk about like, why did you get into stand-up? Why did you get into movies? Why did you get into that area of expertise, and how has that helped you become more of a creative writer and do more of what you're doing today?
The best thing that I did to prepare myself for public speaking of every type was, and also to refine my writing, was improv comedy. Because that actually is the foundation for the Pride method. It is exactly how you learn to do improv comedy. It starts non-verbally, because people say, how the hell can you walk on stage with 3 other people and create an entire scene with a suggestion from the audience? How could that happen? And it doesn't happen because you decide to do it. You build non-verbally, then very gradually verbally, and you learn the techniques. It's not tricks, it's techniques. It's the big one, which is really a life skill, is what they call yes and, which is you never negate what's happening in the scene. So if somebody says, here we are and in sunny Central Park, and we're going to rent a boat, and then you say, and suddenly it starts to rain and there are no boats available, right? And so what you've done is you've negated everything they said. They said sunny day, you made it rain. Going to rent a boat, you said there's no boats. So you say, instead, you add something positive to it. Say, yes, and this older couple wants us to row them around in a boat because they're too old. All of a sudden, you're off and running because you added. Now, you see when I did that, and I did that instantly just now.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't, that was unprepared. But suddenly you see there's a story here. Two old people what's going to happen when you get in the boat with them, and away you go because you added. And so what, and the other thing that improv did, the list is long, but it trains you to trust your spontaneity. It says, if I just relax enough, my brain is going to come up with something interesting. And if I just trust it, I'll be prepared because I've done all of these other exercises. I've been on stage and stuff, but I'm prepared to create. And when you go up and you learn to do exercises and you learn that spontaneity, when you go up on stage and you fully prepared a speech, it's pretty easy because you don't have to make anything up. So you've made yourself super comfortable with prepared material that you can now be spontaneous with. I love being really prepared, and I'm going to do 30% different material once I'm on stage because I'm relaxed enough to look at the audience and see what's triggering. And I'll tell a story, like I'll tell the elevator story with that young girl, and I'll find a new insight into it while I'm on stage. That just flows for me because I'm totally in flow state. I'm totally focused on delivering my message to these people. I don't care about the war in the Ukraine or who's going to run for office or did I, get gas in my car? Is there going to be enough gas on the way home? I don't think about anything. I'm in that beautiful state where all that matters is me connecting and giving value to this audience. And so that's what improv created for me. And I just, and I love stand-up. When I first moved to LA, it was the heyday of the Comedy Store. I mean, Letterman, Leno, Richard Pryor were on stage. And you just sat there in awe. I watched Richard Pryor create on stage his HBO special. Because he just would go up with half his material and then he'd just work it out on stage. He was a ridiculous comic genius, probably the best ever was. Wow. And so I became fascinated with it. I was taking an acting class to just get better at being in my own commercials and stuff. And I met a guy who was a working comic, and he and I became really good friends. And he said, "I know you want to do stand-up." I was doing the improv classes, and he said, "It stand-up's a different thing. It's you're all alone up there, and it's you. It's not you playing a character. It's you." And so he got me to do it, and it was an amazing experience because the feedback loop is instantaneous. But he also said, separate yourself from the joke. If the joke's not funny, it doesn't mean you're not funny. It means the joke's not funny. It means the story's not funny. It means the story's not funny to this audience. A huge insight to take with you because you just move on. And you see the good comics, they'll tell a joke and it bombs. And they'll just say something like, "Man, that was so funny to me in the bathtub this morning. I don't know what happened." People laugh at that because he's not blaming the audience for not laughing at his joke. He's not set. And so when you can release yourself from that nobody wants to watch somebody nervous on stage and nobody wants to be blamed for not laughing. Right. So I've seen guys with B- comic material slay the audience because they're so comfortable up there. And I've seen guys with fabulous material die an unholy death because they're so nervous. And you sit there and watch and go, wow, that's a great joke. It's just like, I can't watch him deliver it. It's too painful. And so that growth and the other thing, and I talk about this, I do workshops on super boldness. I have a 2-day workshop and actually I bring Ruben, my comic friend, in, and he makes people do like mini open mics. He makes them get up and tell a funny story, and then he tweaks it and shows them how it can be funnier. But he said here's the important thing, and this is like a life lesson. He said, when you do stand up, if you kill or if you die, either way, it's in the wind. It's over. And you got your next performance to do. And when you can, you don't get attached to really killing or beat yourself up about dying or the set not going as like you wanted to. You just know it's a beautiful art form, instant feedback, and then it's gone. I mean, how many comedy shows have you been to where you can only remember 5 of the funny things you heard of the 200 funny things you heard? Because it's coming at you so fast. That's what he just said. They're going to remember you and maybe one funny thing you said, or maybe 2 funny things, or maybe just how funny you were. He was so funny. Well, what did he say? Well, he sort of said this thing about a cat and a dog and a, like, you can't even put the bit together because the comic has dialed it in, to the exact verbiage that triggers what he or she wants. So,
which I think just plays into you as a writer, right? So I want you to kind of time travel back, because the listeners of this podcast, they may have you as a child version in their house. I want you to kind of tell the story and depict. Were you like the smart ass kid? Were you the kid that was a class clown? Were you like a leader? Like, I mean, obviously you're all these things collectively today, but were you that representation as a younger individual?
No, I was painfully shy. I was small. I skipped the 2nd grade. And I wasn't that big to begin with. And I went into puberty late. So I hit high school at 13 years old. I'm 4'11", glasses, just like a miniature Fred. And hadn't picked up a lot of social skills or anything. There wasn't a lot of that. Grew up in a very small town. There were no sports teams or anything like that. And so what happened is I started to discover my sense of humor with a small group of people that became my very close friends. They are still my friends today. But I started to feel my intelligence and creativity and wit come to life, but I didn't know what to do with it. And I didn't know where else to go except to be, with this small group of people. So I didn't develop those social skills. What I tell people, they say like, well, how do I help my kid become bolder? And I say, really gradually. Don't push them so far beyond their comfort zone that they retreat completely away from it. Make it easy. Say, just teach them to make eye contact with people when you go to a restaurant. Say, just look at the waiter. Okay, next time you're going to tell them what you want, and next time you're going to say it in a loud voice, right? And you work your way up. And you could have a kid that's a good friend of mine. She just told me this story, which was fascinating. Her parents never repressed her boldness. And so she was trying to get into kindergarten, and that they were interviewing to get into kindergarten. And at the end of the interview, they said, we're not going to be able to accommodate you. We're full up, taking care of our own, the people in our church that and their kids, and you're not a member of our church. And she says at 5, well, did you know that I am the piano performance champion for my age group of 5 to 6? This is what she comes up with. She's like decided, how can I add value to this school at 5? And instead of go, oh, they're not gonna let me in, she just went, let me see if I can spin this my way. The woman says, really? Do you want to play piano now? Yeah. So they walk into another room where there's a piano. She plays a little piece for the woman, and they said, oh, thank you. That was very nice. Gets a call at home that night. We have room for your daughter. And it's like, so she got massive reinforcement at that age for speaking up, for just like saying, you know what? You don't see me like you should. here's something else about me. And she's been bold all her life. Now, what happens to most of us is that we miss the opportunity, so we don't get the reinforcement, and we kind of feel we're like, oh yeah, that wouldn't have gone well, and no, they weren't interested in me, they didn't want me, and so we start to close in, and we start to play it safe. She's learned to embrace her discomfort zone and getting more comfortable in it. It gets wider and wider the more you do it. So give your kids the room, and you'll have kids who go both ways. Kids who are just naturally outgoing, don't repress it. If their teachers try to repress it, you call them the teacher aside and say, do not do this to my kid. Okay. Or when the kid comes home, you say, that teacher, it's kind of a shithead, right? So you don't have to listen to her. You can be quiet in her class, but I don't want you just feel like you need to only speak when you're spoken to, or something like that, or you can't say something funny or something. I'm fine with it. Just know that they may want to punish you. I'm never going to punish you for that. I'm going to encourage you. I heard an amazing story from Sarah Blakely, who started Spanx, created Spanx. She said at the dinner table every week at the like Friday night dinner, she and her brother would be asked by her dad, what did you fail at this week? Every week. And if they didn't have something that they failed at, he was disappointed. But when they said what they failed at, and he was, oh, all right, that's interesting that happened. Is there anything you can learn from that? And so she grew up believing in failure as a process. Yeah. not as something to be ashamed of or embarrassed about or beat yourself up about or retreat from or avoid. It was like, no, this is how you get better, which is true, right? I mean, it's and that's why, these boldness exercises, it's like that I have in the book, they're designed, many of them, for failure. You're looking for somebody to either not respond to you or respond weirdly to you, so that you say, I was intending for them to not, one of the exercises is to walk into an ice cream shop and yell at the top of your lungs, I love ice cream. Now, there's no law against that. But there will be all sorts of reactions. There will be people embarrassed for you. And it's like, why are you embarrassed? I'm not. You're embarrassed for me, but I'm not embarrassed. And there'll be other people that go, yeah, I feel very much the same way about ice cream, because they're in an ice cream shop. Yeah. So you're just, I was at a convention recently, and guys who had read my book, one of the guys just turned to me, he's working there at his booth, and we're out in the exhibit hall with all these people. And he says, I want you to yell, I love ice cream right now. And so I did it. And a bunch of people looked around, and he was like, oh yeah. And he said, now I want you to yell, I love thongs. And I said, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, that I recall.
Because that's not bold. Right. That's just dumb. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I think that's really solid. I mean, like what you're delivering for parents to influence their kids. So let's talk about like your upbringing with your parents. I mean, obviously you're a hell of a successful business owner and entrepreneur. Are you coming from descendants of entrepreneurism, or is that something that you're the first generation to step into that seat?
I'm the first generation. My parents didn't know anything about business. My mom was a bold person out of necessity. And she became the first female life insurance salesperson in the state that I grew up in. And she was always pushing boundaries, because her dad died at 6, the family home burned down at 17. And then she met my dad and was like, this guy's going to save me. Right? Like he's going to, they were living with neighbors at the time because the house had burned down. she meets this dashing guy, and they get married, and they encounter a lot of difficulty right away. But he was a mail carrier and she was an insurance salesperson, but she was the bold one. But she was always pushing me too hard. She was shoving me into the discomfort zone, and I just kept retreating. It's like, call my friend. She would think I could just call her friends, like pick up the phone and dial, get so-and-so on the phone. It's like I was her secretary, and I couldn't do it. It's like, I don't want to talk to this woman. I don't know this woman. I can't dial. I'm not doing it. It's that she didn't know anything else except to just be bold, because that's how she had to move through the world. But she had me on the accelerated track, and I wasn't ready. So I became shy as a result. This is what happens. You either have bold parents that are a great example to you and don't push you too fast, or you go the other way because you go like, I can't do that. I don't know how the hell they're doing it. That's too much. I'm overwhelmed. And you don't want to do that to your kids. Everybody has a different dosage, a different pace that they're going to build their boldness muscle, but anybody can build it. You want to build it at a pace where there's those rewards. There's the positive feedback loop of just, wow, I didn't know that was going to happen. I just smiled at those people and they all smiled back. I said hi to those people and they just said hi. I complimented this person and she said, oh, that's the nicest thing I've ever heard. And you think, that's the nicest thing you've ever heard? Good for me, Yeah. But that's when somebody does that. I think in the book I talk about telling this woman who had this bright yellow dress on, a black woman, and like black women look amazing in bright yellow, and so I just told her that, I said, you just look stunning in that dress. I mean, that color is working so well for you. And she said, oh, thank you so much, because I woke up feeling really kind of down today. And I thought, if I just put on a bright color, maybe it'll help. And it just me saying that to her, just telling her that worked, changed her whole day. What a great gift I gave myself by doing that. I didn't need any more from her. I lifted her up from what I didn't know was a low place. She looked like super comfortable bouncing around in a yellow dress, but she wasn't. She was feeling low. And I boosted her up. What a great thing to get to do.
Yeah. I think it's a hell of. I mean, like the way you're talking about boldness as a definition of something that you can grow into. I think that's just something positive that everyone should actually take hold of. So that kind of leads me to like books. Obviously, I think on your journey there was probably some key books that kind of help you come to this eureka moments, and then obviously then you wrote books to help people move forward. And anyone that's watching this video right now, you can kind of see his background is completely full with dozens of books. So if you had to pick a book, like, maybe one from behind you or one that you could recall from your journey that helped you to become who you are, what recommendation would that book be?
Yeah, there's so many that have influenced my life. But the one that's probably the most profound is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, who was an Auschwitz survivor. And two incredibly powerful messages that came out of that book was the first one was that the gap between stimulus and response is the opportunity for growth and learning and positive result. Because when you have a stimulus, we have something that happens, somebody that says something, and you have a reaction, and there's no gap, especially if it's a negative reaction, and you don't pause in between, you're not thinking about the outcome that you want anymore. You're releasing some negative energy that has been built in you. But if it's just, the perfect example is somebody writes you an obnoxious email. and it irritates the hell out of you, and you write that answer right there, and you send. Guess what? Write it and don't send it. Mm-hmm. Keep it a day and read it and tell me if you still want to send it. Because it's the people who pause think about the outcome that they're looking for. Do I want to argue? Because if I do, they seem ready. But if they don't, what do I want to do? I want them to understand. I want them to know that I identify, or I need to understand why they're upset, or why they're challenging them, or why they're angry, or any of those things. When you start to use that pause, it's really powerful. And I didn't do it for a long time. But as soon as I saw that's like, this is a methodology to improve your life. So that was huge. And the other thing that's probably like a much more philosophical approach to life is he said, we need to stop looking for the meaning of life and start finding a way to live a meaningful life.
Yeah.
Learn to live, stop trying to find the meaning and create a meaningful life by what you do, by the impact that you have. And that my life is about how can I have the greatest impact on the most people so that they can be confident, they can take action when it matters most. Because there'll be 4 or 5 times in your life, maybe, where it will be critical for you to step up or to speak up or to act. You know, I always use the example of giving a eulogy to a friend or a parent, and people say, "Oh, I'm not a public speaker. I can't do it in front of people." And I just say, "You're never going to get another chance. This is not a public speaking opportunity. This is well, I could cry. Oh, wouldn't that be horrible? Wouldn't that everybody would laugh at you for doing that? It's a eulogy. If you don't cry, they're wondering why. But to get up, and this is your chance to get up in front of all these people who love that person and say how you feel about losing them and the impact that they had on your life and the impact them not being in your life is going to be." And I tie it, it's not just boldness to do that, but when you miss that opportunity, it's going to gnaw at you the rest of your life. And that's what happens is look at those times where you didn't step up or you didn't speak up. Because I didn't get to eulogize my father because the church wouldn't allow it. But then years later, the church wouldn't allow anybody to speak except the priest or somebody who was reading like an epistle or something from the Bible. So years later, my cousin's mom died. And at the funeral, he got up and read the same rules, right? Catholic Church, nobody can speak except the priest and somebody reading something from the Bible. So he reads something from the Bible. He's at the podium. He's reading something from the Bible. And then he proceeds to talk about his mom for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody's heart is so full because he's telling how much he loved her and how unique she was, what an incredible mom she was. And he making us laugh and making us cry. And it's like, that was the most important 10 minutes of the whole service. Mm-hmm. And he just said, I don't care what the rules are. Yeah. I am doing this right now. And the priest didn't come over and give him the hook. The priest sat there and probably went like, yeah, it's a pretty dumb rule, yeah. But but he did it and I didn't let him. But I'm fine with it. Most likely, I believe, because most priests come from the heart, but they're stuck with a crazy rule book.
Yeah. I think that's a good representation of. Are you familiar with the Jewish proverb about the lobster, and the reason why the lobster changes and grows is because it's under pressure and it gets irritated, and that's the indicator that the lobster needs to grow and to change its shell. So it kind of goes back to like the people that essentially I think that is your target audience, people that you're working with. So I want you to kind of define them, and I'm gonna reference them as what type of lobsters are you looking for to be able to help them break their shells and to grow.
It's my real audience is people in transition. They feel like there's more to their life, and they feel like they're the reason that it's not happening.
Mm.
And it could be that they've just finished college and they don't know what they're going to do with themselves. They don't feel like college equipped them to really enter the workforce and succeed, or they're ready to quit their job and they say, look, I can't work for anybody else anymore. I have to take a shot now before I get locked into a house and kids and all of that stuff. This is my moment, because the window closes. This is the so important to remember is look back in your life. How many windows closed because you hesitated? Hesitation kills opportunity. And because the window just doesn't stay open till you're ready.
Yeah.
It's like it's quick sometimes. It's like, and what building your boldness muscle does is like, wow, that window open, going in, jumping through head first. I'm not going to pause. And so anybody who's at that point, and it could be any point in their life, they say like, it's time to leave this marriage. That's a really difficult decision. And it may be the only solution for you, or it may be that I need to say to my mate, I have to speak up and say, we need to get in therapy because I love you and I can't figure out how to make this marriage work. Do you want to do that? It takes boldness as a boss to tell your team members what you expect from them. And if you say like, look, this team is not pulling together, and then you say, I'm the only one, I can only fix me. So what am I going to do differently? And the answer is be more bold about giving people feedback in the moment, telling them what you expect for the money you give them, what you expect in the environment that they're supposed to be creating. And so it's anybody who says, I know there's more. I don't want to miss any more opportunities. I want to bring my full self to the world, and I'm holding myself back, but I don't know how to change that. This is how you change it.
So let's just continue down that path. That person is listening to this particular episode right now. They're hearing you. They're feeling motivated. What words of insight or words of wisdom do you want them to take away from you in the next 30 seconds?
It comes down to this. Boldness is a superpower. It will transform your life, and you can learn it. Every step you make upward in your boldness, in expanding your comfort zone, will change your life. And here's the big secret. You don't have to be confident to take bold action. You can be underconfident and still act boldly, and the bold action will build your confidence. It's the opposite of what people think. They think, oh, I have to be I'm not confident enough to do that. Guess what? I've done a whole bunch of things that I wasn't confident enough to do, but I just did them anyway. And what happened is something great. So act boldly, even if you don't feel confident, and it will build your confidence. That's the great secret.
Wow. So how do they get in contact with you? Let's say this is the point to where they love what you said and they want to reach out to you, like on social media, on website. What's the easiest way?
I don't like people. I don't want people contacting me. I like to be alone. No. So my website, fredjoyal.com, is the easiest way. You can find out about workshops, book me for keynotes, and download the first chapter of the book. The book is available on Amazon, and it's in Kindle, it's in Audible, it's in hardcover, and it's me reading the book. And if you're reading it in digital form, you can download the exercises, because that's the last quarter of the book, is all of these boldness exercises that are 5 levels of building your boldness muscle. And if you're listening, like you're listening to the Audible, you're like, I need the physical exercises. You can download a PDF and get all the exercises. So that's the way.
Very cool. So, I mean, I think that kind of leads us into like some bonus questions, and, take a couple minutes to do this, right? So with 1-800-DENTIST, like, again, with your background, and we talked about your background a little bit, okay, you were a shy kid, you grew up to be more of a writer, you partnered with someone that was more into finances. Nothing says anything about oral care at all. So how did that deal get on the table?
This is the falls into the why not category.
Mhm.
A friend of mine had the phone number, the 800 dentist phone number, and he got it when 800 numbers came out. And he wasn't a business person by nature. He wasn't an entrepreneur. He was fairly lazy, but he had this brilliant insight that this 7-digit number was worth something. And he said, I think you're working advertising. I think you could turn this into a business, and he had a vague notion of how it would work, and the structure was wrong and everything, but it was like, there's something here. And so Gary and I said, let's do it. Why not? We don't know dentistry at all. We don't know that many dentists, but we have learned how to sell. And he was a great salesperson. I was a great copywriter. I'm calling myself, I was an effective copywriter. And it was just good luck because the formula worked. What it cost us in advertising to get a new patient for a dentist was worth it to the dentist plus our profit. And that's not, so the formula, we didn't know the formula worked for 2 years, because basically you get to the point where you're so committed, you have to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
And we pivoted left and right all along the way. You run a business for 25 years, amazingly bad stuff happens and amazingly good stuff happens. But when we created a great place to work, that's what we wanted. It didn't matter if it was dentistry or not. It just, everybody had to win. The dentist had to win, the patients had to win, the employees had to win, and we had to win. And if the formula wasn't doing that, it didn't matter if it was profitable. Money was tertiary to us. We wanted a great place to work. We wanted everybody to win. But you want to talk about a great place to work. My last month at work, we celebrated 3 25-year employees. These people had given me their entire adult life working for my business.
Wow.
It made me so proud of that. And I'm so grateful, because you get people who support the culture. That's what they're doing. When you create a great culture, the people have to defend it. Because you get 250 people, you can't defend it yourself anymore. You can lead from the top, but they're the ones day by day that are defending it. And they'll root out the employees that aren't following that. They'll just say, this person's got to go. I know she seems like she knows what she's doing, but she's pulling in the wrong direction, and she's fouling the waters here, so to speak.
Gotcha.
So that's and what happened is I met a bunch of really terrific dentists who became good friends of mine. I learned a lot about how to help dentists succeed with all of their marketing and all of their patient experience stuff. And I aggregated that knowledge and communicated it, and developed a significant reputation in the industry for myself, not just for 800 dentists.
Wow. So, I mean, earlier on, you were talking about, obviously, like the rise of 1-800-Dentists, and then the dawn of Google and how that model didn't work. So let's talk about like the transition. Like, did you have an exit strategy? Was it something that once you realized that was coming down the pipe, like what was your plan of action, and how did that get resolved?
Yeah. So this is an example of sometimes things go as bad as they possibly can. And so I knew what the transition was, and Gary had retired, and he said, look, if you want to buy me out, go raise some money and buy me out. And there was another company, a SaaS product that I wanted, software as a service, for anybody who doesn't know, that I said, and I was trying to build it in-house, because I said, this is where our industry is going to go as we shrink. And then I found this little company, these 3 guys who had created what I was trying to build, and they had a super coder in the business. Those guys who are 25 times more valuable than the next person. And so they wanted, because of the culture I created, they wanted to come work for me. And so they agreed to sell the business to me. So I went out, raised the money, brought in private equity. Now, private equity said, all right, we want you have to stay, but we're going to replace you with, quote, professional management and bring in another CEO. And we just picked the worst possible guy. He, in the course of 9 months, destroyed the culture, didn't believe in culture, destroyed it. And I was powerless. I had to stay, but I had no more power. He got in litigation with the SaaS company, lost the litigation completely, but spent half his time fighting the litigation. We lost them. We lost the whole team. And we basically forfeited the match because all the competing companies said, oh, shit, here comes Fred, with this giant footprint in the industry already. And 4,000 clients already. He's just going to add this SaaS product to his existing clients. He's going to roll over us. So they stepped up their marketing, their advertising, their development. They all upped their game. And we spent all our time fighting litigation and then didn't even know how to work the software because we had lost the supercoder that wrote everything. And of course, supercoders never annotate their code. So my IT guys are going like, we don't even know how this code works. And so from there, everything tumbled downwards. And I was powerless to help it as the business shrunk and the profit shrunk considerably. And SaaS products are incredibly profitable. That business would have easily been worth $100 million, but at a peak moment when I could have sold it. Because I had a friend who built the similar, he started when we did, he sold his version of this for $440 million to Intuit. Wow. So I thought, yeah, that was the way it could have gone. But, and eventually, television advertising didn't work. Phone numbers were less meaningful because everybody was looking to websites. We were buying clicks from Google as they were disintermediating our business. By their own admission, they said, our job is to basically erase you as a business model, but we're happy to sell you $500,000 a month of clicks in the meantime. And so it stalled, and then it jinked down a couple of times and then got to the point where it was basically unprofitable. Wow. Sold it to get it out of private equity, sold it to another company that I thought, well, they're going to invest money and lift this up with a different strategy. We created a very good secondary strategy to leverage 800 dentists to help sell dental technology, actually. They bought it, then 3 months later merged with another company, had a total culture clash in that merger, totally ignored us for 2 years till we had, and it was like, where's the plan? Where's the execution of the plan? Where's the $3 million you're going to put in for this? And none of it happened. They fired the CEO that had done the acquisition of me and the merger. And we were the redheaded stepchild. And eventually I bought it back from them for a nominal amount of money just to get it out of them. But it was too late. It was wreckage. And so I turned it over to a small lead gen company that still runs it now, but it's a pale shadow of what it once was. But hey, it was a great life. It was a great business. I made a ton of money. I spent more than I made. So, it's a problem. But I am now CEO of another company that is a great product. Oddly enough, created by the guy who sold that business, that other SaaS product, for $440 million. Wow. So he's licensed me this division for the dental industry of this new product that he's created. So I'm back in the CEO saddle, about to, in essentially startup mode.
Gotcha.
But I'm young. It's still plenty of time to pull this stuff off. So.
Well, I love that story because obviously, like, you're an industry legend at this point. The fact that you had such a rise to an empire particularly based upon copy, right? Particularly
Yeah.
based upon what your trade is. So anyone that's listening that may have a trade but don't see the opportunity or see the out, you're that opportunity. You're that story that most people don't have the opportunity to really hear as taking on a particular career, but merging that career with something that you have nothing to do with whatsoever. So I definitely appreciate that, and that kind of leads me to, if you, as an individual person, right, and this is hypothetical, had an opportunity to spend 24 hours with anyone, this person could be dead or alive, who would it be and why? I really got to get Jeopardy music when I ask
Yeah,
this
yeah,
style of
because this
question
is
because it's
that's
a process question.
there's if you said who what if I could put an advisory board together of six people, it
Yeah.
would be easier. Um, I mean, but it boils down to the person I admire most in the business world, which is Sir Richard Branson,
Ah,
um,
yes.
because he is uh, he is bold, especially in his marketing, with some of the most brilliant marketing moves I've ever seen that anybody's ever executed.
Yes.
He jumps from industry to industry,
Hmm.
from the record business to the airline business to
Mobile.
cruise lines, hotels, uh, and now space travel.
Hmm.
Um, he's an amazing groomer of leaders
Hmm.
because there are 400 companies under the Virgin brand,
Yep.
and he runs none of them.
Hmm.
Uh, he's a playful individual. He believes in giving back. Virgin Unite is one of the biggest charities in the world, and it supports charities. Like if he finds a charity that he thinks, wow, that is a great idea, and his kids run it, his son and daughter run the charitable organization. If they find a charity they think is doing something really good, they say Virgin Unite will give you the infrastructure. We'll do all the admin. We'll do it for free. So all the money that you raise goes to what you're doing.
Hmm.
And they've done it with uh, 30 or 40 charities, but they're
Wow.
always looking at new charities. But they help these charities to thrive because they know how to administrate
Hmm.
that side of it. They know how to, because a lot of people go, I got a great idea to raise money and I got a great cause to solve it, but the operational stuff they don't know how to do, and the
Wow.
legal side and all of that stuff. So, and you know, he's a family man. He's fell in love with this woman 50 years ago or something. I probably not 50. He's 70 something. I don't know. Could have been 50 years ago.
Wow.
And he's been with her, and nothing interferes with his family life. If it's the grandkid's birthday, it's like, I'm sorry, you don't get me today.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, uh, and he believes in trying to that he got lucky, and it's his responsibility to make the world a better place.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
and I would just play. I've played chess with him.
Yeah, I heard you
Uh,
kicked his ass, didn't you?
the first time I won, yeah,
Yeah.
and he immediately set the board up, called me a bad name, and immediately set the board up to play again. And then I never beat him again, and he just would yell at me because I was taking too long to move. But you know, I just to spend 20, we would probably spend most of the time playing chess and laughing and talking about a few things, and like, and then I would casually say, you got any way for me to change the world that you don't have enough time to?
Yeah.
Uh, so
I think that's a phenomenal story because I mean, obviously, you already had spent time with him before, so you, like, out of all the people, dead or alive, you want to spend another 24 hours with him. So that's a testament to who he is, and obviously to your point. I mean, playing chess with someone of his caliber, it's like it's a consistent mind game, right? You're playing a mind
yeah,
game, you're playing chess, but you're also having conversation about life and business at the same time. That's kind of like the best coaching you could ever possibly have.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I definitely, I love it. I appreciate that. So, I mean, with my podcast, I like to close out my podcast with an opportunity for whoever I'm interviewing to become the host of the Boston Cage podcast. And because you already have a podcast, you should be fine with this, right? I am
Yep.
now your guest. You're now the host. You get to interview me. What questions that may have came up during this episode that you would like to ask me?
Uh, where do you think you didn't step up in your life that you can fix now?
Well, yeah, I think I'm on that road now because in my earlier days, as far as an entrepreneur, I burnt myself out, and unfortunately, I had a stroke, and then I was kind of like the quiet guy. That's why I would love to have this interview with you about being bold, and I had an opportunity to listen to my girlfriend, who's my spouse now, to say it was a time for me to become bold. She's like, I know you're a bold person, but you're so driven in trying to help other people. Why don't you try to brand yourself and be bold? And that's how SA Grant came to be. That's how Boston Cage podcast came to be. I mean, the reality, if that stroke didn't happen, if that moment of her genius didn't happen, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Yeah. And so the other question is, are you working in your zone of genius, or is there a lot of noise in your life still?
Nope. I mean, I think post stroke, I was kind of like slimming things down and being more of a brand strategist and kind of figuring out. So, like, once I realized that the entire time, my entire life, everything I've been being groomed for is essentially to be a podcast host to talk about business and talk to people. Because, again, I could turn on the different characteristics, whether we're talking about insurance or business strategy or marketing or whatever else it is, because I've been through all those opportunities. Now I have a platform that I can kind of deliver and be on task and be intuitive to the questions that I'm asking because of my history.
All right. So what's the boldest thing that you could do with your business right now?
Um, right now, one of the boldest things I'm doing is writing my ninth and tenth book. And my ninth book, the name of it is called Brand Babies, and the cover is covered in sperm.
That's a bold move.
That's a
It's a
bold move,
disgusting move, but it's a
but
bold move.
it's a bold move. Yes.
um, and what would you like to be remembered most? If somebody were giving your eulogy,
hmm
what would you want them to say?
I think part of my legacy is what I'm building and developing right now with the Boston Cage brand. So I want it to be an opportunity to where 100 years down the road, this information can help someone. I would like for maybe 60 years down the road, a Jeff Bezos comes out from our audience from listening to it. And I would love that person to step into it and say, hey, if it wasn't for the Boston Cage brand and the opportunity from learning from people of your caliber and other millionaires and billionaires in the world, that they wouldn't be who they are today.
Those are all my questions for now.
Great, great. Well, I definitely appreciate you. I think this was a hell of an episode. I think that you brought value to the table, and I think obviously we talked about 1-800-DENTIST, but I think there's so much more to you than just that particular company, and I think you definitely delivered that today. And I really want anyone that's listening to this episode to really, whatever you're doing right now, there's going to be opportunities to come in front of you, and like what Fred was talking about, when those opportunities present themselves, stop hesitating, become bold, and seize them because you may not have that opportunity later on.
That's it.
Yep. Well, I appreciate it. SA Grant, over.